5 minutes into the conversation with you, I had the whole answer prepared, and you were able to help me connect the dots, which is what we lack. I think going into the process without having this experience, that is what we lack. We don't know how to build a story out of our own experiences. We got to talk about the mock interviews because I really found them super helpful. Into the Darden interview, I was very confident because 2 whole hours with you, that extensive analysis was super helpful. I was very confident after that. So
hi everyone, this is Piyush Ranjan. I'm the founder of Management Masters. We are a boutique admissions consulting firm for the top MBA programs around the world. Today we have with us Shreyasee Chatterjee. Shreyasee worked with us to apply for Darden Business School and she received an admit from the school. So without further ado, let's hear from Shreyasee and learn about her application journey and how did she manage to get into one of the top programs in the world. It's absolutely a pleasure to have you, Shreyasee, with us. Before we begin, could you just give a brief introduction about yourself and what you have been doing?
Sure, Piyush. It's a pleasure to be here. So I will go about it chronologically, perhaps. So I studied economics in college. I've got a bachelor's and master's degree. In my master's program, I was awarded the university gold medal. So my professors really encouraged me to go for a PhD. But I was very tired of studying by that point. So I started working instead. And I joined a company called Ipsos. I was a marketing analyst. In terms of this being my first year job, I would say it was very interesting because I got to work with diverse clients. So all the way from pharmaceutical companies to beauty and skincare companies, even restaurant chains. And that was my first exposure to data analytics across multiple industries. And while at Ipsos, I also got the opportunity to travel to New York. I lived and worked there for 5 months directly with the consulting team. So that was also an incredible learning experience. I spent 3 years there, and then I, switched gears a little bit. I moved to the financial services industry. I joined HSBC as a customer analytics. And here, what I do is a little different. So I provide data-driven, actionable insights to the business team to help increase customer acquisition, manage our customer portfolio and our product and services portfolio. So again, slightly different application of data analytics to an entirely different industry.
Yep.
That's what I've been doing for the last 6 years. And now I'm all set to go to Darden. So happy to answer any questions and to help, those following in all of our footsteps, I guess.
Thank you so much for that. That sounds absolutely incredible. Now, if I understand correctly, you've had a very interesting and sort of quite a fruitful career of around 6 years in the data industry, right? So
Right.
you work with different kind of clients, you work in financial services, but still in a very data-centric role, right? So could you help us understand a little bit, how did you go from here, from being in a data role to sort of realizing or understanding that you would want to go for an MBA to sort of move into your career further?
Sure. So the thing with, the work that I did really gave me the opportunity to watch or to observe how the leaders and decision makers of my organizations were using the insights that we were providing to them and using those insights to formulate strategies. And over time, I realized that, that's what I want to be doing. I want to go from being the person that's generating the insights to the person that's using them to formulate strategies or to really take meaningful decisions for the growth of the firm. So that's what I wanted to do. And with the kind of work that we do in India in data analytics, it's more of a support function, especially for the organizations that I've been part of. So while we do have the opportunity to participate in that story building or that decision making, we do have some opportunities, but it's still restricted within the domain of analytics. So just to break free of that constraint and to do more of the decision making, that's why I wanted to do the MBA. And also to explore other careers. I kind of fell into data analytics straight out of college, and now having worked for 6 years, I've got more of an idea about all the different opportunities out there. So also want to take this opportunity to really explore those opportunities as well. That's it.
And that makes a lot of sense, right? So coming from seeing other people utilize your insights, you want to get onto the other side of the table as such.
Right.
And at the same time, obviously, there's so many different things that are happening, and the MBA probably provides a really, really good platform to explore different things without having too much of a backlash. Right? We can't
it's
afford
a
to
safe
always...
environment for that exploration.
Yeah, exactly. So that makes a lot of sense. But again, when you start thinking about an MBA, the first thing that there's so many steps involved in it, and the first step, if you talk to almost anyone, it would always come back as the GMAT or the GRE test prep, right?
Right.
And especially for people like you, candidates like you who are working in organizations and who have had quite a nice career, working at sort of senior positions as well. How did you manage with your GMAT prep? Any key strategies that you utilized or the resources that you used to prepare for your GMAT? You elaborate a bit on that for us?
Sure. So I started studying in April of last year. And because, as you noted, I was working full time, I didn't have a lot of time to every single day. So about 4 to 5 days a week, a couple of hours before work started. For me, my working hours are 12:30 to 9:30. So I had 2 hours every day. Initially, what I did was I bought the OJ, and I wanted to get a sense of what my starting point was. So started solving the problems to get an idea of how much time am I taking, what are my weak areas. About 3 to 4 weeks of that initially, and then I moved to the online version because I knew from the very beginning that I would probably be doing the online GMAT, and I wanted to start practicing online. So the online version of OG is a big, it also shows you your performance metrics online. So it's easier to track as well. Okay. I also subscribed to Magoosh, and Magoosh was a great resource for me because there's, I think, 600-700 math questions, 400-500 verbal questions, and lots of tutorials and videos to explain each topic in depth. And they also they write back to you very quickly. So anytime that I had a doubt, I would write to them. Within hours, I would receive a response. So these two were my big tools. There was also GMAT Club. I would practice the problems. With GMAT Club, the one thing that one has to be careful about is filtering and selecting the problems, because they have many different sources, and some of those problems not really relevant for GMAT. So instead of getting too distracted by what you may not be able to solve certain kinds of problems, so don't get distracted by that. That would be one advice. So I took exactly 3 months to prepare. July 27th was my GMAT. Closer to the exam, I think about 2 months before, so I started giving the online mocks. I gave the 6 GMAT, the MBA.com, the mock tests. I also gave, I believe, a few other free tests available. All different levels of difficulty, I would say. So again, if you're not doing very well on anything other than the OG related material, I would say don't get too worried about it, because it's honestly all different levels of difficulty.
What would you say worked the best for you? Because it's you prepared completely on your own.
Right.
So what would you say worked the best for you?
practice, practice, practice. That's it. And of course, when you're practicing, don't do it blindly or mindlessly. Do keep an eye out for patterns of mistakes. And it's very important to have all the formulas and tips and tricks in mind, just so that you're able to solve quickly. There are certain easier ways to do things. So I would say practice, but do keep an eye out for patterns which you can leverage and then improve your performance.
Thanks for sharing that, Shreyasee. That makes a lot of sense, right? And thanks for elaborating so much in detail about how did you exactly prepare, because at the end of the day, all the strategies that you took, it helped you get a really, really amazing score, right? So now, once you had your score, obviously you had to start working on identifying the schools that you wanted to apply to, and how did you go about that? Could you sort of elaborate a bit on that for us?
Because my GMAT score was really high, 760, so at least that wasn't a concern for me in terms of school selection. I could apply to all the schools that I wanted to from the GMAT perspective. So in terms of what did I want to gain out of the experience, I wanted to go to a school that was known for its collaborative culture and where the community was really strong. Because being an international so far away from your country, you want that. I didn't want to be in a very cutthroat, hyper competitive environment. And I was also looking at consulting as a career, and also I have an interest in marketing as well. So in terms of school selection, I picked Wharton, Kellogg, Darden, and Duke Fuqua. Kellogg was in fact one that you suggested to me because of my interest in marketing. And so Darden and Duke Fuqua have, been very good consulting schools. So that was how I sort of balanced my school selection across the two categories. For Darden, particularly, what stood out to me was the fact that when I attended the different webinars, and that's how you have to go about your initial selection, attend all the webinars, talk to people, send them requests on LinkedIn. That's how you get to know what a school is really like. So for Darden, what appealed to me was that the way the admissions director spoke to, potential applicants, the way the students themselves talk to each other, from the very beginning, I could get a sense that it was a very friendly school. And a lot of schools talk about community, but for Darden, nobody had to, go out of their way to talk about it because it was apparent. Yeah. Even when I was filling out the application form, the way the questions are phrased, it's a completely different, it's a very friendly vibe. And that's what really appealed to me. And also the case method, which is a big USP for Darden, also was something that I was looking for, because throughout my education in India, I've done the theoretical approach to academics. And I wanted the opportunity to have that practical application in a safe classroom environment. Yeah. So that's why Darden, and luckily it worked out.
That makes so much sense. And to sort of build upon this, right? Almost all the schools that you're talking about, whether it's Wharton, Kellogg, Darden, or Duke, they have very, very interesting and very different essays from each other, right? So how did you go about sort of approaching the essays, approaching and working on the essays for these schools? Could you elaborate a bit on that?
Sure.
What factors did you keep in mind while answering those questions, for example?
Sure. So I think to begin with, I'd like to mention something which I guess, everyone is going to come across this word, be authentic. And when I kept hearing it over and over again, there was a point where I felt irritated, because to me that word lost its meaning after a point. What does it mean to be authentic? Yeah. Looking back, I would say what that really means is, and this is my opinion, but I feel as Indians, we tend to highlight the things that we've done very well, the things that we've excelled at, but we feel a little bit of reservation talking about challenges that we faced. That's where I would say the word authentic has its meaning, that when you're writing these essays, do not feel afraid to reveal your weaknesses. In fact, I have seen that that doesn't hold you back when you talk about your weaknesses, but you're able to relate that with uh, the journey that you've had. How have you overcome it? Or even if you haven't been able to overcome it, what are you doing about it? That really makes for a far more believable story. That the admissions director sitting thousands of miles away is actually able to connect with. I would say that, for others who are going to hear that word authentic, please keep this in mind. Don't get irritated. That really is, some sense to it. And yeah, generally, I would say the strategy should be to understand the meaning of the question.
Mhm.
Think of a few different ways that you could answer the question. Then, try to look at it objectively, get other people to discuss it with, and see which is the story that really sets up the context, answers the question, and has a nice conclusion. There should be the whole arc. And
Yeah.
like I said, uh, talk about your problems, because nobody has 100% success rate, and that's not believable. So there's nothing to mask. Talk about what you've been through, because that is your journey, and that's not going to be something that holds you back.
No, that makes perfect sense. Could you sort of elaborate? Because if I remember correctly, we worked on
Darden
one essay
and
for Darden and one essay for Duke Fuqua.
Fuqua. Right.
And again, two very unique essays, right? So working
Mm-hmm.
on diversity essays for
Yes.
Darden, whereas working on 25 random things for Duke Fuqua.
Mm-hmm.
It could be I think a love-hate relationship with the 25 random things, because you could either love that question or you could absolutely hate that question for the rest
Yes.
of your life. But yeah, so how did we as management masters sort of help you out with your essays? If you could sort of talk a bit about that, anything that sort of you took away from our process working with us on the essay itself.
Absolutely. So I actually do want to mention this, because I think Darden was the first essay that
Yeah.
we worked on together, and I still remember I went into this phone call with absolutely no idea of what to write about. So of course I am a member of the diversity and inclusion group team at HSBC. That was all I had in my mind, but nothing specific. 5 minutes into the conversation with you, I had the whole answer just sort of, prepared. And I think after the call, I wrote it probably in another 15-20 minutes, and I was able to send it across to you. So
Yep.
what really helped was, with your experience, you were, and I remember you were teasing the information, the story out of me. I made a statement, you were like, but wait, why are you saying that? What did you think? And I was like, no, this was my thought process. And you were able to help me connect the dots, which is what we lack. I think going into the process without having this experience, that is what we lack. We don't know how to build a story out of our own experiences. So with Darden, that was, I remember 5 minutes was all it took.
I also
And
remember that because I absolutely loved working on the essay with you, because you were a client where I did not really have to spend any energy, right? So we have our phone call, we do the discussion, you go back, you write your essay. And I think it's very rare that it happens that within one or two drafts, the entire essay is finalized. Like it's very common for us to sort of work with candidates, and on an average, I think especially when you're working with us for the first time, right? When you're writing an essay for the first time, it's very common to have like three, four revisions of that. And with you, I absolutely loved it that we have a discussion, you go back, you write your essay, and the first draft I'm reading this. Okay, the only thing that I need to sort of take care in this is because the word limit is 150 words
right,
and we have
right.
160 words, so I just have to sort of crop down 10 words in it.
Yes.
So that was absolutely amazing. So I think a lot of credit goes to you because the aspect what you talked about essentially the authenticity of it, right? And I think when we were discussing the question, I was trying to bring that out with you. That this is what you have actually done, and this is what you have actually sort of. This is how you can sort of frame it, right? And you were able to introspect and sort of bring that out very clearly by yourself. Because at the end of the day, as a consultant, I can only advise. I can tell you how to think about it. I won't be able to tell you what to think about.
What to think about.
Right.
That's true.
So it's a great sort of work that you did, because you were able to sort of take those advice and apply it to yourself, and then sort of bring out something so nice in terms of the essay.
Thank you. And with the Duke Fuqua essay, I remember being very intimidated because it's not easy to come up with 25 random but meaningful things. So again, you broke it down very simply. Break it up into these 5. I think, no, not 5. You said personal, professional, and life.
Different aspects of your life.
Right. And to start with 5 points for each. See how far you can get. We'll build on that. So just knowing that, having a structure in mind, this is how I should approach it, that made it less intimidating. Yeah. And once I started writing, of course, with some guidance, it's easier to understand what your next step should be and what should you be elaborating on versus leave it short and sweet. Mm-hmm. So I think even with the Fuqua essay, we were able to wrap it up fairly quickly because you had that beautiful framework for me to start with. Without that, it would have, I was very intimidated for sure, but it
all right.
Was much easier.
But that sounds pretty nice, and thanks for that. That's very kind of you, Shreyasee. But once you, we also worked on the mock interviews for Darden, right? So could you help a bit or help elaborate a bit? How exactly was the interview?
Mock interviews were sorry to cut you off. I'm so eager to talk about the mock interviews because I really found them super helpful. And I think before the interviews, we had a conversation about how to prepare, because Darden has a very different interview format. You have 15 minutes to talk about yourself, followed by, questions that come out of your monologue. So I remember talking about that with you just to get a sense of how to prepare that monologue. 2 interviews, very in-depth analysis. I think we spoke for 30 minutes, followed by 30 more minutes of just question by question analysis. One of my sessions was with you, the other one was with Aniket, I believe.
Could possibly.
Both the interviews were extremely helpful to have someone just breaking down each and every answer for you and to tell you that, this is. One more thing which I really appreciated was this tip that you gave me. If there's something that you want to elaborate on, but it's not the right time for you to go into that, just, leave a hint for them.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd love to come back to this later. So those kinds of things really helpful, because how would I know otherwise that that's the strategy? And just overall, I think going into the Darden interview, I was very confident because 2 whole hours with you, that extensive analysis was super helpful. And I also got to discuss a lot of other questions which we didn't cover during the interview itself. So I was very confident after that. So 2 thumbs up.
2 thumbs up to you. At the end, you nailed it in the final interview. But let me come back to this very quickly. So, you have all these 4 different parts of the process. You have the GMAT prep, you have the B-school research and sort of figuring out where you want to apply finally. You have the actual work on your applications, right? And then you have the interview process. Which was what was the most interesting part of the process for you out of these 4 things?
So most interesting part would be school selection, and I would say all the 3 besides the GMAT, all 3 of them, because each comes with its own, you learn a little bit more about yourself through each of these 3 different processes. When it's the school selection, you're reaching out to these, high achievers from top schools, you're requesting them to talk to you 15-20 minutes just to get into the habit of networking, which is really important in America. With each little networking event, you get a little bit more confident. You develop a clearer idea of what are the questions you want answered. What are the things that you're looking for in a school? That's also something that you realize as you talk to more and more people. So that was really interesting for me. Essay writing, of course, I enjoy writing. A lot of people don't. So for me, I liked that opportunity to write essays. And like I said, you are forced to think about these experiences and to connect the dots. And not just for the sake of essay writing, but as an individual, when you go, I have done something interesting, or wow, I never thought about that, but that's, that is something unique about me. It's you learn so much about yourself. And finally, with the interview, again, that's the culmination of all the effort that you've put into the whole process. That's your last opportunity to impress. Again, a lot of questions that you're forced to think about your own life, and because we do have answers to all of these questions. The first time someone asks you, what is your strength? What is your weakness? What is your leadership style? What is your communication style? We tend to think, oh my God, I've never thought about, what strengths do I have? But we do have answers to all of these questions.
Yep.
So each of these processes is very important, teaches you a lot about yourself. And if you have the right attitude about the whole thing, you're going to enjoy all of it. Maybe not the GMAT prep so much, but definitely the rest of it is enjoyable.
Absolutely. It sounds absolutely amazing. And thank you for some beautiful answers that you've given us. Let's move into the last part of the overall session. And I think you have absolutely no idea about this as well.
No.
And this is what we call the rapid fire. We will just have a couple of questions for you to answer as shortly as possible, possibly if one word, one sentence, right? So let's have the first question. What is the biggest myth that you have realized about MBA applications by being through the process yourself?
So I would say, don't get too carried away by the rankings. The top schools are all genuinely, each of these schools will offer you great opportunities, and the rankings matter to some extent. But what you should be focusing on is, what is your career goal, and what is XYZ school? What are the resources that the school is offering you?
One event or society or something, whatever is it at Darden that you're really, really looking forward to?
Okay, so not related to careers and academics. I'm really looking forward to the Wine and Cuisine Club at Darden, because Charlottesville is a foodie's paradise, and there's lots of great wineries there. So I'm really looking forward to WACC.
That's nice. The worst part of the entire application process, which you never want to repeat again.
Um, the worst part is, it comes and goes. Feeling unsure about yourself, not, having doubts about yourself. It's unavoidable, because it's a very competitive process. And when you face a rejection or something doesn't go your way, you tend to feel very deflated. Nobody wants to go through that. It's inevitable, but this process also toughens you up. So just, take everything with a pinch of salt. That's what I would say.
Oh, sounds pretty good. One thing that you would change in your own application journey if you, let's say, had to redo this again?
Going back to what I said earlier about, not being very afraid to talk about your own challenges and weaknesses. I would probably bear my heart open that much more, just to, explain who I am in depth. That's it.
Okay. And I think the final question that we have, one piece of advice for aspirants who are planning to apply to top schools.
Try to be as methodical as you can, but don't feel intimidated. The process tends to get overwhelming, but make friends, because the one thing that I've found is, across all of these forums, everyone's in the same boat, so everyone's very eager to help each other out. And the more that you talk to people, you'll get to hear a lot of useful tips and tricks that individually you may not realize. And that's where a lot of the wealth of information lies, in that communication. So that would be my tip.
Thank you so much, Shreyasee. It has been an absolute pleasure talking to you. And I wish you the best at Darden and beyond.
Thank you. Thank
And
you,
let's
Piyush.
keep in touch and sort of, again, best wishes for your future journey.